Hello everybody and welcome to the Imperial War Museum here at Duxford and this wonderful Battle of Britain exhibit. We're joined by Craig Murray, who's the curator here at Duxford. And Craig, first of all, thank you so much for taking your time out. I know you've been very busy today with a lot of other channels, but obviously the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain. We're going to basically go through this exhibit here and chat about Duxford's involvement with the Battle of Britain, which was quite extensive, I believe. So, for example, this particular hangar that we're in right now. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is one of the original First World War hangars, but they were used during the battle essentially for maintenance. The fighters themselves would have been dispersed around the airfield, so as soon as they were called up, they could get up much quicker, because obviously you don't want them kept in a hangar, and if, say, the site had been attacked, it was at least once, you get all your fighters could be destroyed in one hit if they get here. So they're dispersed around the site for rapid getting them up into the air, basically.
So, in terms of the number of squadrons that were here, there were some very famous squadrons that were based here. Tell us about those.
Yeah, we had 19 Squadron who have been, well, Duxford's most famous squadron. They've been here since 1923, and they were the only permanent squadron during the Battle of Britain. Many rotated in and out, particularly as we get into the August-September period with the wing and later big wing. But we also famously have Douglas Bader's 242 Squadron, who were largely Canadian squadron, and he came in and reorganised after they were quite badly mauled over Dunkirk. So Douglas Bader, yeah, is here, 19 Squadron again, one of the RAF's elite squadrons, and a number of others come in and out as well, including 74 Squadron led by Sailor Milan, probably the most influential pilot of a living group down in London. He was briefly here with a wing while they were taking out a living group's area to get them a bit of rest.
Interesting. And we'll talk a little bit about Bader, or Bader, a little bit later on, because he was a bit notorious for being late, I believe.
The wing would be a problem, and it would be a controversial thing with Duxford's involvement. It causes no end of problems with a living group. In fact, severe acrimony and disagreement between the groups that sadly led to the Keith Park of a living group, who's the victor of the Battle of Britain, losing his job after the battle actually ends.
Interesting, interesting. So these young lads, very young lads, most of them, this is where it all basically happened, with them sitting out on the grass waiting for the bell to be rung and so on and so forth. So this is right where we are now, is where that kind of thing would be happening.
Yeah, out in the airfield itself there would be dispersal huts which are no longer there, where you would spend time in there during the day. Sitting outside if the sun was good. I think, as Douglas Bader said, air combat was several hours aboard and punctuated by a few minutes of sheer terror. So a lot of time, particularly at Duxford, there would be a lot of sitting about. It's really in this latter phase of the battle that they get called on more and more. The primary function of Duxford, because it's a sector station, is to defend the Midlands and the North. However, as the battle escalates, a living group increasingly call on them to come down to assist, either to protect the airfields where their squadrons are up in the air, or to actually get involved in the battle as need be.
Now, when we talk about the Battle of Britain, we're talking about German bombers coming in to wreak havoc wherever they can, but primarily a lot of the war period was, during that period, was for to attack and knock out as many air bases as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the bombers come in, they're often escorted, they'll be escorted with fighters, top cover, and also just covering them on their flanks. And the fighters will often be really just shackled to the bombers, because if they come off the fight, one, they lose more fuel, but also the bombers then become more exposed. But yeah, they're attempting during the second phase of the battle, if you like, during August, what they call the Adlerangreif, which is the Eagle attack. It's a month-long attempt to knock out the RAF by destroying airfields. They're constantly trying to do this. A large raid will come over from Calais, then it'll split off, and they'll attempt different things. And this is how the Dowden system deals with this, by the radar and the observers. So you know just to use the squadrons. You need Keith Park can send up pairs of squadrons working together to Spitfires to take on the fighters, and the Hurricanes to take on the bombers. And a very, very efficient system that works most of the time.
Yeah, and we were talking about the Dowding system. The Germans had absolutely no idea what these. I guess they couldn't see these huge systems that were planted on the south coast of England.
I mean, they were aware, I suppose, of radar because they had radar themselves, but they didn't really realise what it was doing. And often the pilots will stay away from wires anyway. And even if they were lucky enough to hit one of the towers, which is pretty difficult to do anyway, the sweep of a neighbouring station can take over. And the system has an inbuilt thing where there are engineers, GPO engineers, etc., can get the lines back up again and get these things up in a matter of hours. It's the same with the airfields. No matter what they bomb, in a matter of hours they're back up and running again. There's maybe a couple that are out for slightly longer that are closer to the coast that get hit more often, but in the main, they don't deny the airfields to the RAF. In fact, they changed to attacking London the 7th makes no real difference to the RAF. It takes the pressure off. I mean, nobody wants to be bombed every day.
Yes.
But whether they kept on doing it or not would have made no difference. It's nice not to be bombed, but it wasn't a critical factor. They still would have.
But we're sort of like in the driving seat in terms of early warning systems.
Yes. I mean, radar.
Our technology, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, radar. Hugh Dowding has incorporated radar in the mid-30s when he comes up with the system, when he becomes the first air officer commanding a fighter command. He sees the value of radar. He's not a technically trained man, but he intuitively understands good technology and understands how it works. So he incorporates this along with the Observer Corps, who have been part of the earlier defence of Great Britain, which was a sort of a pre-runner of air fighter command, bomber command, coastal command. But at this point, the radar can only look out. They're really talking then 41 into 42 before you have 360-degree rotating radar, which can actually give you real-time information to the pilots in the cockpit, which at the moment it just can't do. It has to go back to the filter rooms at Bentley Priory, and then through to the stations, through to the groups, through to the sector stations like here, and then onto the tables where the WAAFs are plotting it. But by 42, they're getting real-time to the actual fighters themselves,
so
which speeds things up.
So the early form of plotting it with the WAFs and so on and so forth, being overseen by the station manager or whoever it might be, that's something that we're going to be picking up on a little bit later. Right. Well, what we'll do is we'll have a little walk round. You can talk us through the exhibits that you've got here. I need to pick this up, so if you can give me a couple of seconds. Jilly, just check. Okay, picking up. Okay. Right, we're good to go in here. Stand by. All right, okay, good. Right, let's have a walk round then. So let's. This kind of gives visitors an immediate sort of like look at the sort of like how it all played out.
3D map showing what the exhibition was created by my colleague Adrian Kerrison, who's one of the Second World War curators here. He was responsible largely for this. I did the ops room and he assisted with that because it was a bit of a bigger ask really, I suppose, for us all. But Adrian did this one here, and he sought to make it a more coherent narrative where we run through the various stages of the battle. And this is just sort of 3D, showing some of the exhibits, well, all the exhibits actually you'll see, but some of the more prominent ones like the BF-109, the Mark 1A Spitfire, the Hurricane, are sort of shown in 3D models, etc. So it gives you a nice sort of 3D overview of how the whole thing pans round, if you will.
Yes. Okay, so we a lot of people will have will know exactly what we're looking at here, and historians will know that it is an ACAC gun, I believe,
yes,
is it?
It's one of the lighter ones, the anti-aircraft guns. I mean, the anti-aircraft command was incorporated. I mean, it was run by the Royal Artillery, but it incorporated into the Dowden system. Whereas in the control of the ops room, you actually have gunnery officers who will coordinate with the. So they'll radio out to those gunnery positions to say these are our fighters coming over, and so nobody shoots down the wrong thing. So Dowden has got this in the system as well, along with barrage balloons. So the artillery are incorporated in. They're separate, but they come under because they're air defence as well. So the whole thing works together, and you have obviously like these type of weapons are spread out. Sometimes round airfields like this. We didn't have one of these as far as I remember, but they'll be all round in various, you know, strategic areas,
Yes.
particularly coming in over the coast
Yes.
area and round about London.
And I think one of your volunteers earlier on was mentioning how this was 40 mil. It's a 40 mil cannon which can shoot up to 8,000 feet.
That would be probably about right, yeah. It's obviously exploding shells type of thing. I think they've got a proximity fuse where they will explode. You often see that in films where they explode round.
Yes.
I think it basically goes off at a certain altitude.
Yeah, so it's sending out shrapnel basically.
Yeah, even if it doesn't hit, it can actually damage something.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
basically set to go off at a certain height. You mean you get it with the normal artillery pieces, they might be set to airburst, they might be set to explode on contact or at a certain height or a certain distance.
Yes, yes.
It's to do with the timer and the shell.
So you've got the air laying, the gun laying chap sitting over there, which is basically fixing the target.
Yeah.
He's giving the information, and they're basically swinging these.
It's basically a magazine. You see, you slot it in as a clip. It's like a much bigger version of, say, like a Lee Enfield rifle clip. It slots in the top and just shoots, it chunks down every time it fires, basically.
Very impressive. Good technology for its day, I guess.
Oh yeah.
And effective, I'm guessing.
Yes, I think they were relatively accurate. Yeah.
And that would be going after the bombers primarily, I'm guessing, not so much the fighters.
Well, as the fighters would tend to hug to the bombers, they'd be top cover, or they would be, you know, on the flanks to protect them. I mean, depending on they would just be going for what they could see. I mean, obviously the bombers would be the more practical thing to bring down because they're the one that are going to do the damage, not the fighters. The
Yes.
fighters are there to protect.
Yes.
So yeah, you'd be going after the bombers.
Yes.
And it's a role that the Hurricane also takes on as well.
And this particular, 109, BF 109,
BF 109E, yeah.
and she's got a history shot down here in the UK.
That's right. This is a recreation, actually, of a photograph after it came down. There used to be a little sentry with it because the original photograph is an army sentry standing beside it, but he's disappeared since of the time. We just decided to take him away.
Yes.
We replaced the mannequins throughout the exhibition and went more for these cutouts of people, these
Right.
silhouettes.
Yes.
But yeah, this one was actually shot down during the Battle of Britain. It ended up going off in a tour of America to raise funds. They did this sometimes with shot down aircraft. You paid, it would be a few dollars, I think it was, or however much, and you could put your name in it. And actually, over the other side, you can actually still see people's names on it.
Oh, okay.
And
We'll have a little look at that.
Yeah, years ago when it came in here, the idea would we get rid of it, but then we said, well, it's part of the aircraft's history, what it did after it was shot down, so we left it really.
Yeah, I mean the other side is the other wing is actually as it was, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
right.
hasn't been restored.
That's
And I take it those holes there just by the cockpit, they're not authentic bullet holes, are they? Is that
No, that's not. I think it's
No.
riveting, isn't it? I think.
just in front of the Tiger? Is it?
No,
That's just rivets that have-
even the 303 would make a much bigger hole.
Yeah,
than
it
that.
would, wouldn't it?
But
But
it's got the 7.92 machine guns firing through the prop, and it's got
Yes.
20mm cannons in the wing.
And
It did
the-
actually have it was originally designed. It had a cannon that fired through the prop, but it caused the aircraft to become too unstable, so they never used it.
Oh, okay, so sort of like an oscillating.
Yeah, it was actually fired straight through, but they obviously the machine guns going through, but it made the aircraft unsteady, so they never really used that. But they had the two cannons in the wing. They're slower firing, it requires a good shot to use them, but they're much more destructive than the machine guns and the British fighters. Right?
And interestingly enough, an engine that's upside down.
Yeah, it's the Daimler-Benz. It's certainly, I mean, it's a non-carburetor engine, it's fuel injection, so it's much better in negative Gs than, say, they didn't solve the issue with the Merlin with its carburetor flooding because they had to go net, had to flip
Yes,
it
when
back.
yeah.
But it's much better at diving from height and climbing in many senses than 109. In fact, I was told last night by somebody who's flown one and he flies a lot of aircraft who's based on site that it could actually outturn a Spitfire if you hit it really hard. And these there's these front leading edges that smack out that can make it really turn. Most of the time a Spitfire will outturn it, but if you knew what you were doing, but it was actually quite a frightening experience because it makes a hell of a bang, which sounds like you've been hit by a cannon or something. But a good pilot could do it if they knew how to handle it. But it took, it's not a very forgiving aeroplane. You had to be on top form to fly a 109. If you were tired after multiple raids in Britain and being shot up by the RAF, if you were tired, injured or just fatigued, it was very unforgiving.
Yeah, and protecting a bomber stream, I guess, would be very
Extremely
fatigued.
stressful.
Yeah, yeah.
Particularly when you know, one, you've got limited fuel line, and two, if you leave the bombers to fight, one, you'll suck up a lot more fuel, but also then the bombers are vulnerable to being attacked. So it's a bit of an enviable position for the fighter escorts,
Yes.
or the top cover. The top cover possibly have more leeway because they can bounce, but certainly if you're an escort fighter, it's a bit of an unforgivable task, really.
Yes, so this is the sort of like thing that we would have seen scattered across the south coast of the UK.
Yeah.
In the cornfields is exactly as it is.
Yeah,
I do remember that picture, actually. I've seen it many, many
Yeah,
times.
I do like this diorama.
Yeah.
I do like dioramas. They're quite good.
Yes, yes. Okay, moving on to this particular Spitfire. Got a great history behied it.
This
Got
is-
some real provenance.
Yeah, it's the genuine 19th Squadron one. It's pre-Battle of Britain. It was shot down over Dunkirk. It was flown by Geoffrey Stevenson, who was squadron leader in 19th Squadron at the time. He obviously went into captivity, and the aircraft was buried in the sand. I think it was around about Sangatte near Calais. And years later it was brought up and it was restored here by the Aircraft Restoration Company a few years ago. John Remain's company, who are on site here at the top end of the site. And it was, I think, lovingly recreated from original plans of its type. And so now we have it back in flying, which is fantastic.
He's got a bit of a story to tell. This chap when he came down on the beach, didn't he? It was a wheels up landing, I believe, and he ended up at the Belgium, walked to the Belgium American embassy or something like that.
I think it was something like that.
Yeah, and they told him, "Forget it, mate. We're neutral. We want nothing to do with you." And then he was.
Yeah, he ended up in Colditz along with Badr because both of them were troublemakers and constantly trying to escape. So then him and Badr both ended up in there.
Yeah. And he ended up in Colditz because of the previous camp that he was at. They got fed up with him trying to escape so many times that he had actually sent him to Colditz.
Yeah, this is where they put the hardcore escapers in Colditz because they thought, "We'll never get out of there, will they?" But when they designed the Colditz Cock glider, Stevenson, if it had worked, was going to be the one to fly it, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, never happened. But a great story,
It's a great
nonetheless.
story, yeah, absolutely.
But beautifully restored and airworthy. She's
She
airworthy.
flies a lot. Often we're fortunate she's here actually because a lot of times she does fly. You come in here and it's missing, but it is really good to see them fly.
Yeah, and of course, again, as we were discussing the more sort of like air-to-air combat against the fighter.
Yes. It's,
Whereas the Hurricane, and interesting to show that she is airworthy. You've got drip trays underneath her as well.
There's always in the
Fantastic.
usual sort of the coolant fluid. You can see the blue in the floor.
Yes, brilliant.
So still an active hangar before the aircraft.
Absolutely wonderful. And of course, moving on to the Hurricane as well. Another, I believe she's quite a new addition to the.
It is. It's a private owner's aircraft. This is a genuine Battle of Britain Hurricane. It was part of a living group, I think, and I could be wrong. It was at Kenley, but it was shot down as well. And again, it's been restored beautifully. And,
Isn't it just?
But it's really nice to see an actual genuine Battle of Britain aircraft.
Yes. And you must be very honoured to have her. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though the Spitfire obviously has Duxford provenance, to actually have one that's actually a real Battle of Britain one
Yes.
is great as well.
Yes.
And we actually have some objects from the pilot who flew it in the collection. He was killed in another hurricane the day after, either the day before or the day after this one was shot down, because obviously they didn't fly the same aircraft every day, but he'd flown it as well. But I think it was the day before it got shot down, and he was shot down and killed in another one.
Wow. So you obviously have a lot of other exhibits here which are on display, which are.
We do. I mean, we have a historic Duxford display which is up outside what we call Hangar 3. It used to be the old watch office. This was pre the control tower, and we actually have one of Douglas Bader's dress uniform and his medals up there.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay. Beautiful example. So beautifully restored, lovingly restored as well.
Indeed, absolutely.
And any of our historians want to get a mark on that reg? It's as it was, I'm guessing.
Yes.
course, what you're hearing there, ladies and gents, is it is an active airfield with historic flights here as well. It's a massive museum, but with both historic static exhibits as well as obviously flying exhibits, which a lot of those have been restored here. One of which is the Blenheim, which we'll talk about on another visit, I'm guessing. But
that's another one of John Remain's.
Fantastic exhibit. But wonderful exhibit there of that Hurricane. Of course, the what we were talking about earlier on, one of the main German bombers that were used during the war, and we talked about the fact that it had a horrendously low bomb capability, didn't it? But they went for more bombers than small amount with large.
I mean, I think the Luftwaffe, there was the idea kicked around to have 4-engine bombers, but the economic argument was you could have more 2-engine bombers, and because their air force, the Luftwaffe was a tactical air force, not a strategic one. It was designed to do a job of supporting the army and their blitzkrieg type campaigns. That was what it was designed to do, and so it finds itself very much out of its depth, really, attacking Britain. But yeah, this is the 111's, Heinkel 111's tail. This was taken out of a fjord in Norway, somebody back in the 70s, I think it was.
I believe the rest of it's still down there.
Probably, yeah. And none of them are quite deep and cold.
Yes, yeah. A bit like the Halifax from Hendon.
Yes.
That came up from the Norwegian fjord.
That's right. I mean, it's a big engineering ask to get some of these things up.
Yeah.
And I think the RAF Museum, they got that. Is it the Junkers 88 or was it Dornier 17 a few years ago? It was in the sea. They managed to get it.
Oh, yes. I think it might have been there. Well, I'm not sure. I don't want to quote it.
I can't remember, but I remember thinking, man, that's a hanger there.
Yes.
Thing to get out of there, to be honest.
And another recovered engine, not from Heinkel, but. Okay, so this is out of a Heinkel, yeah. Another Daimler-Benz engine, yeah.
Because the Dornier, I think it was using the Junkers made its own engines, but the Daimler,
Incredible engineering for its time, and the fact that they built so many of them in vast quantities.
I mean, they were using Heinkel 111s in Spain as well. So I mean, it was getting to that obsolescent phase, but then the 111.
Yes.
I mean, Junkers 88 was probably the best bomber there.
Yeah,
but I think, as I mentioned,
just one bomb.
Yeah, it was just the flying pencil.
Actually, didn't they have? They had one on each wing, so they could do.
They could do dive bomb.
Yeah.
There was an obsession of Goering's to have even the dive bomb, which took away from its capability. Really made it heavier.
Yes.
To the armour.
Yes.
Yes. But it could operate in various. It was a multi-role aircraft. It was a very good aircraft.
And frightening as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, the whistle was actually created to frighten
the Junkers 87.
The 87, yeah.
The 88.
Oh, okay, my apologies. The Junkers 88 was a twin-engine, low-level bomber as well. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
yes, sorry.
It could take multi-role, but it was asked to do dive bombing as well.
Yes.
But the Junkers 87 was the most accurate bomber, but also the most vulnerable. It's very slow. It's got only one forward-firing gun. And it's the RAF used to refer to it as a Stuka party when it went up because it was kind of shoot a fish in a barrel.
Yeah, I mean
they get withdrawn after a while because
huge undercarriage just creating so much drag on it. Yeah,
it must have been quite terrifying to go underneath it, mind you, when the screaming of the Jericho silence.
Exactly. Yeah. So this, as we can see over here, a very you can just about pick out people's names on the wing here, which is quite interesting. Yeah.
Somebody. Is it Lambert? I think it is.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's just everywhere. The more you look, the more you see. Really.
Yes, most definitely. Joan Lambert.
Yeah.
Olympia.
I don't know what that is. It's someone in the States, I imagine.
Yeah.
There might be somebody's name actually. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. There's a whole.
Is that the original prop as well, or?
I think it is, I could be wrong, but I think it is. It's missing the spinner, but I think it is the original prop. I think it's just as it is based. I mean, there's been things like the radio cable has been put back.
Yes.
And it has actually been restored.
Yes.
But it's the photograph of it used to sit out there, and it just, apart from having the spinner on it, it's missing. I don't know what happened to that. Possibly it disappeared in its trip to America.
Yeah, it's probably been it's probably in someone's personal collection, isn't it?
Entirely possible. We couldn't
Yeah.
possibly comment.
As were so many panels as well that were stolen. So another sort of like a larger.
It's heavier
Yeah,
anti-aircraft than
yeah. I mean that's incredible.
slower firing, but a much bigger hitter. Yeah, it's the 3.7 inch gun. Yes, it's a much bigger gun.
I mean that throws a lot of artillery up there, doesn't it?
I mean, it's like the German 88mm, which was originally anti-aircraft, but it's Rommel that turned it into an anti-tank gun. So I mean, you could just put it. But this was bring it down level and bang. It's a tank killer.
Yes.
Because it's basically mounting the same gun as a Tiger had, really. But it's this is very much a heavy anti-aircraft gun. Yeah.
So that's after our bombers, basically. After their bombers. But it's the equivalent of what our bombers would have had to have gone up against in Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you
like in huge shells, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Much more stopping.
Incredible. And quite a number of personnel needed to operate one of them, I think.
This, I think, had about a 7-man crew.
Wow.
It's quite a number, I think. I mean, certainly bigger guns do require a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, there's gun layers, there's the loaders, they have a number of different jobs.
Yes.
There's a lot getting height and everything, and the angle and what have you. Yeah. And as they dial in the.
And they're getting their information from the ops
They're
rooms.
getting it from the ops room because they're coordinating. The gunnery officers there will be telling them fighters, whatever, coming over at what coordinate and how long they're going to be arriving. Look out for them at this altitude. There'll be so many, so they know what they're looking for coming. And if they see it, and they'll be saying Germans coming from this direction. You know, whatever, Angels 15. However many, probably 40 plus raiders, and you'll know what angle in the direction they're coming from, so they'll just be dialing in their sights ready for that kind of altitude and that kind of direction, basically.
Yeah.
So everything's coordinated up, so there's hopefully no mistakes. There are mistakes made, there always are. There's
of course.
human error on anything, really. So
yes.
Basically, that would be what they would be doing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Searchlight, obviously.
Beautiful searchlight. Yeah. I mean that's. Hundreds of those dotted around London, and
I mean, you just light up the sky, don't you? And it makes the bombers very vulnerable to attack from the anti-aircraft, and also night fighters when we were starting the night fighters together by 41.
Yeah.
But it's obviously it's sort of like you don't want to be caught in them for too long, to be honest.
No. That's one of the big stressful parts of flying a bomber that our boys used to talk about with the Germans. Once they're caught in that, that's what the corkscrewing was all about, trying to evade the
night fighters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so finally we've got another Hurricane exhibit, which this one people can actually have a look inside the cockpit, which is
this is a new thing. This is only just coming here. The steps here to actually allow you access. There's going to be a couple others on site. I think are going to go up in the airspace hangar, but we managed to bag one for this hangar too.
Yeah, because you've only just actually reopened this exhibit here.
This is the first day of opening.
Yes. Oh well, there we are.
So you're right in first.
Yes. So very, very tight cockpit.
Very tight. You wouldn't
confinement.
Want to be too big. I mean, you get this bucket seat because you sit in your parachute. It's very, very tight. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting, noticed earlier on when I was looking in here, there's a couple of what appear to be inspection panels down in there, clear panels which go inside the undercarriage bay, from what I'm seeing there.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. Obviously, a visual inspection
Could well
to make sure his gear's down, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
so you can see, if you can see the ground, then...
yeah, exactly. If you can see, you think, oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah, an incredibly solid fighter that could take an awful lot of abuse.
Could take a pounding, couldn't it?
It was, it was
big, deep wings. And
just in fact, you've got this. It's not a semi-monocoque Spitfire. It's got this fabric over metal, and it's bullets pass through it. I suppose, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it can take a fair.
I think one of the biggest things was the glycol tank being right in front of the pilot there. That's one of the biggest things of that being shot out and then them getting covered in glycol, basically.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But a real workhorse, and I mean, many more of these. I mean, they've been in production longer, easier to produce than the Spitfire.
Yes, yes.
Something like 32 squadrons had them as opposed to, I think, about 19 Spitfire squadrons, so there were much more of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, a very, very good fighter, there's no doubt about it.
Yes.
I mean, the Spitfire's the one that everybody remembers, but this did a hell of a lot of work.
Yes.
To be honest.
Indeed. Good. Okay, so we're going to finish off in the ops room, I believe.
Yep.
So we'll take a wander over there, shall we? I'm just going to change a setting on here, Julie, because just take. Yeah, I am. Okay, so I've done that. Yeah. Just let me just. Okay, let me just check. Yeah, that's better. There we go. Good. Okay. Wonderful. Okay, fantastic. So, yeah, great exhibit, really impressive, and of course you've got a lot of volunteers who work here as well. Who
there's a lot of explainers. They'll talk to the visitors about the history.
Very knowledgeable. I was having a great chat with one of the fellas earlier on, and he's just like rattling off so much stuff. It was fantastic.
We're really lucky to have so many enthusiasts and very knowledgeable people working here.
Yes. Right. Let's have a wander through to the ops room. So this is actually the actual ops room that we're going to go and see here.
Yeah, this is our actual 1928 built first generation operations room, shared with places like Biggin Hill had one exactly the same, as did Kenley, as did Northolt's is pretty much similar, and there's also North Weald, I think, as well. So it's shared. It wasn't unique, but it's pretty unique now, to be honest.
Yes. But it was primarily all about telecommunications.
It's about control, command and control your fighters. The controller's job. The call comes through from Group, who were up at Hucknall in Nottinghamshire, 12 groups, and they tell you what they wanted you to send up, how many squadrons, how many, because the information had been assessed through the filter rooms. They knew what was coming, and they said, whatever, send up a section, send up so many squadrons, or in the case of the 15th, send all 5 up, which is what they were doing. And they would, the controller would then talk them up to where they were supposed to be, and then once they engage, the controller's job's done, because you can't control the squadrons while you're doing it.
Yes.
But once the battle's over, once the information comes through the options say like the raiders are going back, then you can start calling them back, and the controller would sometimes have to talk some guys back in if they got lost, because it could happen. Or if you were having trouble, or maybe the engine was dying on you, he would talk you down to an airfield close by. So that was his job, really. He was the one who got you to where you're supposed to go and talked you back.
And the initial information that came through was from the ground observer teams, wasn't it? On the coastlines.
Yeah, because once basically the raid is over land, the radar can't see anymore, so it's all up to the observer corps. These volunteers sitting out in posts in the countryside, on top of high buildings, and just in towns, just everywhere. And so as it goes over each one, they keep reporting back, and you get this new information updating all the time, which then ends up in the operations room table, where the WAAFs move these things. At the start with, it's something like every 5 minutes they're getting a new plot, but as the war goes on and things speed up, the plot time speeds up.
Yes.
And Hugh Dowden ensures at the filter room at Bentley Priory that he gets some very, very clever people in there so they can quickly sort the information, get the dross out, and just send the stuff needed. It's very clever. It's information in, information out.
Yes.
Everybody gets what they need, and it doesn't have to overthink it. And that's the problem. If you've got too much information, you get confusion. If you just get told what you need to know, you can do your job, and everybody knows what they need to do.
Yes. So a very highly efficient system.
Very. Yeah.
So what we're walking into here, obviously, is the operations centre.
Yeah.
But first of all, we're just going to have a little look at other rooms. If we walk down to the end there, we've got, I believe, a cinema in there.
Yes, what we've got here is an introductory film. It sort of explains from the German Blitzkrieg through the fall of France and how we get to the Battle of Britain, basically. And then that gives us an intro into the next room, which explains not only the dowsing system but Duxford's position in that dowsing system, so you kind of know what this sector station was supposed to do. And then as we move through the rooms, we hear about the WAAFs, and we hear about the controllers, and then finally the pilots. We tell the stories of the people who actually worked in this building and the pilots who actually were at the sharp end, before finally moving into the actual operations room itself, where we've designed this new audio-visual which recreates from the history that is known, from the operational record books and from combat reports, the afternoon raid of the 15th of September.
So actually off today, basically,
yeah,
80 years today.
80 years ago today. It happened at, well, we're slightly late. It was 3:30. They were up around 3, back at 3. So we're slightly after. They've been coming home to this point. Oh, they might have been home actually.
Fantastic. Amazing. Amazing that we're able to do it. So we'll just nip through here because obviously because of the audio we won't be able to hear very much. Although it's going to start in 21 seconds, so a good seating area, sort of 20 people in here, I guess.
Yeah, you can get more. I mean, obviously with social distancing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yes.
People are coming through in smaller amounts because of the.
Yes.
But yeah, you can maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, the 20.
Yeah. So we'll just show them basically what we're looking at in terms of.
It's used doing original footage, plus we've cut in film footage of a reenactor group who do Battle of Britain to sort of recreate the pilot's wait and scramble, and also within the operations room, people working in there, the kind of job they would have done, just to give it a little bit of a feel, of, you know, because there's no film from them operating.
The Battle of Britain was one of the most significant campaigns of the Second World War. For over 3 months, Royal Air Force pilots, supported by a vast network of dedicated ground crew, defended Britain against intense attacks by Germany's Air Force, the Luftwaffe. This is the story of the men and women of RAF Duxford, who worked in this building and flew the aircraft that helped secure victory in the Battle of Britain. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland, marking the beginning of the Second World War. Britain was drawn into a conflict it was not fully prepared for. Germany continued its relentless offensive, attacking Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg and France. French and British forces were pushed back to the beaches of Dunkirk. Many of Duxford's own fighter pilots gained their first experiences of aerial combat against the more experienced Luftwaffe during the evacuation from Dunkirk. France had fallen, and Britain, under its new Prime Minister Winston Churchill, was now isolated. Adolf Hitler turned his attention to invasion, ordering his generals to prepare a plan known as Operation Sea Lion. The Luftwaffe was to destroy the Royal Air Force and gain control of the skies over southern England. The RAF had one major advantage over the Luftwaffe, an innovative air defence network known as the Dowding system. This relied on coastal radar stations giving early warnings of raids coming across the channel, and Observer Corps volunteers visually tracking Luftwaffe aircraft over land. Raid information was communicated rapidly through the chain of command. This system allowed the RAF's fighter squadrons to be used efficiently. It also conserved its most valuable resource, pilots. In July 1940, the Luftwaffe began an intense period of raids, bombing British supply ships, ports and naval bases along the south coast. These attacks disrupted Britain's vital supply lines and drew RAF fighters into battle to test their strength. The RAF was put under enormous pressure when the Luftwaffe began concentrating their efforts on destroying airfields and communication centres. On the 31st of August, the RAF suffered its heaviest losses. Yet the Luftwaffe continuously underestimated the RAF's strength and overestimated the amount of damage that their attacks had caused. Inaccurate reports of RAF fighter numbers and an inability to settle on a coherent plan hindered the German offensive. the Luftwaffe changed its strategy and began to launch attacks on London in an effort to bomb Britain into submission. On the 15th of September, a large raid was reported off the coast of Dover. Duxford launched into action. A phone call from Group Headquarters gave the operations room information about the size and direction of the raid. Within minutes of receiving the call, Duxford's fighters were scrambled, sending pilots up into the air to intercept the raid. Step into the following rooms to find out how the men and women of RAF Duxford played their part in the Battle of Britain.
Fantastic. Had to really watch the whole thing, I'm guessing, because as they say, step into the different rooms, which are self-explanatory with everything that we see on the walls here. Of course, the WAAFs played a massive role in everything, didn't they? Women's Auxiliary Air Force, and you know, we've got to give them as much thanks, as well as the pilots, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they're often the option WAAFs are seen as sort of elite, but they did so many things like everything really. They did everything, and also things like barrage balloons, getting them up and down. And the idea was, well, they're women, they can't possibly have the strength, but thousands of them did that job and did it really well. So it just shows you that it was just this idea they couldn't, but they certainly could. And it was administration, code breaking, telephony.
As well as ferry pilots for aircraft from Canada too.
I mean, the ATA were a separate organisation. But
yes,
they've got a large number of women who've they asked for people who never flown before, and people just went, "I'll have a go."
Yes, yes.
Really, that kind of
just incredible
attitude. These are the different controllers we have here. The controller of the Ops B and the Ops A. We have an interactive for each room, which is created from just either off the top of our head or some. In the case of the controller one here is actually based off of a live recording from the Malta option between.
Oh, I see. Okay, yes.
We wrote it to make it Douglas Bader and William Woodhall.
Yes, yes.
Based off of that, and
which is what we've got in the ops room as well. The scenario that they play out, which is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So typical RAF fighter pilots.
Yeah, this is a sort of the May West, the period after, from 41 they came made them yellow because the pilots used to paint them yellow, which is used, so it made them more
visibility. Yeah.
I mean, this is the cigarette case is probably the most exciting object we have. Brian Lane, who's squadron leader of 19 Squadron, this was his. The reason he's bashed up is because he had a crash in 1938 in the Miles of Manchester. Hit the ground at 200 miles an hour, and him and his mate were stretched away. And if you look closely, he inscribed on it the name, the number of the Manchester and the date as a memento to himself of his close shave with death, basically.
Yes.
Sadly, Brian was killed in 42 off of Valkyrie Island in a fighter swoop. But this is the only known.
That's incredible.
Apart from his logbooks, it's the only known personal object that Brian Lane may have left, and we're really, really honoured to have collected donor last year, Dylan Sarko.
Interesting, the boots were, the top half were detachable, weren't they? So that when they were, as if they were, I certainly know that the bomber pilots had that because, so that they wouldn't be detected if they were shot down walking around Germany as just like a pair of shoes rather than a big pair of boots.
They were warm and they were comfortable.
Yes.
The cheaper ones came later, the ones that were popular, but these ones were very popular model.
Yes.
The flight suit is a 19 Squadron, and they had their own black flight suits. Pre-war, this is Gordon Sinclair's one, he's a prominent 19 Squadron pilot. He's also one of the ones who was transferred to 310 Czech Squadron when they were formed here at the end of July period, because they had British officers with them to sort of try and bridge the language barrier and teach them about the aircraft, because they were great pilots, but they weren't used to flying modern fighters.
Yes.
So it was a kind of a phase, but they still flew during the battle.
Yes.
But they had their own squadron leaders as well. So it was sometimes a language thing, sometimes it was just an instruction thing.
Yes, yes. Okay, and finally, we are 2 minutes away, I believe. There's a Thanks, Phil. This is, of course, the ops room, which is open to the public and fully authentic. I notice you haven't got dummies in here, which is quite a good thing because it's sometimes sort of like, you know...
They kind of age badly and not everybody likes mannequins. Really.
Yeah.
I think they can work in some situations, but I think they can start a little dated, and I think it's much better. What we did was to light the positions as people speak, because previously this was actually done in the 1980s. It was rebuilt from scratch. None of this is real, it is reproduction, but it was recreated from the photographs we have of Stanley Devonton.
I see, okay.
And recollections, and also from the vast swathes of Air Ministry documentation on different ops room, like how things were fitted out. Things going on at Duxford, things going on at Biggin Hill, we're having these tables put in, that wall's taken away. All these kind of things that...
Yes.
Because you can rebuild it from that, the equipment, but it's largely done from the photographs we had that were done in September, late September 1940. And Steve Wolford, who was in charge here for years, and he's largely responsible for the site being a historic area, he originally built this from scratch. So we didn't do much there. We rejigged the top boards so they actually coordinate with the script, so the lights come at the right time.
Yes.
We changed it, we repainted it into the colour it would have been. It should have been green, but it never got... it should have been green according to orders, but it never ever got painted that way because we scraped back the colours on the wall with knives to try and find the original colour, and it appears to be in this kind of creamy white colour.
Interesting.
So that's what we went with, really, for a bit of authenticity.
So this is the show we're going to see now. Okay, folks, here we go.
On the afternoon of the 15th of September 1940, the German Air Force launched a huge raid against London. This phone call would begin Duxford's involvement in the day's events, sending out the big wing of 5 squadrons with 49 pilots in an attempt to intercept the attack.
Hello, Hucknall. George Sector receiving. Understood. Thank you. Sir Bentley have ordered the wing to patrol Hornchurch. A large raid is reported to be approaching the coast between Dungeness and Dover, and the level group are throwing everything they have in it.
Right, ladies. Start getting the box ready in case they head our way. Ops, how many aircraft are available?
49 available, sir. 11 damaged in the earlier raid.
Right, Ops. We need to get them up straight away. Scramble all squadrons.
Yes, sir. Douglas, scramble 242 immediately and form up the wing. Hello, 302. Scramble, scramble. 310. Scramble. Hello, Falmouth. Scramble 19 and 611 squadrons immediately. Scramble. All squadrons scramble, sir.
Thank you, Ops.
All squadrons except 242 now airborne, sir.
Why isn't Douglas up yet? They're taking far too long. Ambrose, connect Laura Ladies radios at the tower.
Connected, sir.
Dory control to Laura Leader. Douglas, what's the hold-up? Your orders are to form the wing overhead as quickly as possible and proceed to Hornchurch to begin Angels 2-5, Oscar.
Laura, lead to control. Stop worrying, Woody. We'll be out soon. Over.
Ops, update on 242.
Sir, 242 now airborne.
Thank you, Ops. Let's hope they make it in time.
South, Alpha London, 90735 Duxford Wing, 49er aircraft at 8.
They should be over Saltbury now. Dory control to Laura Leader. Douglas, vector 175. Over.
Laura Leader here. Received and understood.
Yes, this is G Sector. Right, thank you. Sir, the observer call reporting 3 large formations of enemy aircraft approaching Sevenoaks and Maidstone on a 30-mile wide front. Estimates 150 to 200 bombers, 400 fighters, likely target London.
Thank you, Ops. Dory control to Laura Leader. There's some trade heading northwest to the south of you. 500 plus bandits at Angels 2-1. Over.
Lovely. Laura Leader to Dory control. Bandit strikes over southeast London. Planning and positioning up front to attack.
Dory control. Understood, Douglas. Give them a hand. Guns, bring AA command to let them know the wing are close to London.
Yes, sir.
No idea the wing. Tally ho. 40 enemy bombers to port. Time to Angel 2 over to intercept. Newton leader, Charlie leader, the party is on, you know the drill. You take care of front and cover. Cannon leaders, follow me to the bomber. Platoon 4 leaders. Row 9 behind and above. All the way to gate. Bring up. Charlie leader, report. All the way to branches ready for the ground. Stand by for MOS. Wait for line order. Guard engage.
Okay, well there you go, folks. That gives you a good idea of exactly what you get to see here when you come and visit. We're going to head back to great stuff. Just wanted to sort of like not show them the whole thing, just because want them to get a little bit excited when they come here as well. So so that's great. Wonderful exhibit. So we're going to finish up, and of course I guess these are barracks, are they?
No, these are First World War buildings we used for air gunnery training, navigation.
Oh, really?
Things. And
Oh,
that
okay.
building over there was aerial photography. So these are First World War.
Wow.
buildings.
Wow, it's great to see that it's it's all authentic. Even that hangar's painted in the.
Yeah, that's kind of mocked up really the Second World War. I mean, during the Cold War period, into the war period, they tend to paint them from white because just it kept people busy, paint the curbstones and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, they did sort of calm them up a bit during the battle type of thing, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so going to finish off with one of the other Spitfire exhibits here. I guess this one that we're going to see here, Craig, is a mock-up.
Yes, it's basically a fiberglass replica.
Yes.
But it's painted to represent Bernard Jennings' particular aircraft. He was a 19th Squadron flight sergeant.
Yes.
One of 19's, successful, popular pilots, along with George Inman, who's another sergeant, again a very, very, very fine pilot. George Inman was our highest scoring ace of the Battle of Britain. He was he was a sergeant.
Yeah, he's got quite a lot of provenance, hasn't he? He was a young lad when he started in the RAF, clerk. Yeah.
Eventually, when he opened up flying training to non-officers, he applied a few times. Eventually gave the right answers to the board about sport. He kept telling me like football, and he kept failing. And eventually, he sort of got the inside gen that horses were the way forward. So he went back home, I think, and he knew a local farmer. He taught him all about horses and how to ride a horse, and then he could talk at great length about horses and horse racing, and he was on the door.
Fantastic.
But we have I forgot to mention in the pilot room back there, we've got his logbook open the day of the 15th, and his combat report was just there as well.
Okay, so he was active on that day.
He was, yeah.
Fantastic.
But this is, it's mocked up to look like Bernard Jennings, the aircraft, and we've got Bernard in silhouette there with a little bio of him.
Yeah, there's a little, let's just have a... So obviously a genuine picture of him cut out.
This is one of the pictures I'm taking at Duxford, and it's one of the ones, the Stanley Devon photographs. He came over really to take 19th Squadron at Filmere because they were one of the RAF's elite squadrons. And he also did the ops room and other things while he was here. He worked for the Immersive. He was a famous photojournalist in his own right. He actually wrote a book about it, and I think he actually forgot this was Duxford. I think he thought he was in Essex at some point when according to his autobiography, which is quite fun.
Fantastic. Okay, well, folks, you can read all about this young sergeant, Bernard Jennings, along with all the other heroes who basically flew from Duxford. As well as all the other history of Duxford and its how it took part in the Battle of Britain by just visiting Duxford. Information we'll give on the website as well, if you want to. But it's a very simple Duxford website to visit.
Yeah, it's the IWM.
It's the IWM, which covers all of the
sites. There's a key, just click on the Duxford bit and I'll take you through to
Yes.
what's on here.
Yes.
Various events that are going on, the exhibitions you can see, so there's plenty on there to look for.
And of course, people can feel very comfortable about visiting here in terms of social distancing and.
Absolutely, yeah. There's plenty of measures put in place, coupled with the fact you're in a wide open space largely. Yes, in the hangars you'll have to wear your mask, but there's plenty of space, and we're taking into account social distancing. So yeah, you're perfectly safe coming. Yeah.
Craig, thank you so much.
No
really
problem.
appreciate
No
your time
pleasure.
here today, and we'll close it there. And thanks very much for watching, folks. We'll see you tomorrow for more live on Big Jet TV. Thanks very much indeed. Okay, GP, cut.